over the last several days, several weeks, several months, Donald Trump has been touting his tariffs as being successful. Well, now the numbers are in. And in fact, the tariffs are not successful. There are several things that we can garner out of this. But before we talk about that, let's go ahead and listen to Steve Rattner, who goes ahead and breaks it down, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Steve, there has indeed been plenty of speculation about how Trump's tariffs will impact the country. So tell us, how does the economy look almost 5 months into Trump's second term?
So the Commerce Department reported that prices for all goods went up by 2.4, I should have said Labor Department, 2.4%. But for what we call core goods, which is you take out energy and other volatile categories like food, they went up 2.8%. And that, as you can see, is flat here and just slightly up here. So pretty good news on inflation. Why? I think people feel there are three reasons why we haven't seen the tariffs yet. First of all, importers stocked up in anticipation of those tariffs. Secondly, businesses are trying hard not to raise prices, although at some point I think we expect them to. And thirdly, the tariffs have been on and off and paused and so on. And so the effective tariff rate is actually at the moment a good bit lower than what Trump had put in place at the beginning. But economists still expect them to rise by about 3% this year, which means faster than that at the end of the year. And consumers actually expect them to go up 6.5%. Trump, as you know, has been posting on social media about how the Fed has to cut interest rates. The Fed has to cut interest rates. The Fed's target is 2%. They use a slightly different price index, but close enough. 2% is what the Fed wants to cut interest rates. So there's a tug of war going on right now between Trump and Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed. But let's look at another indication of what impact the tariffs may have this year. The World Bank, completely dispassionate, a neutral organization, put out its semi-annual forecast day before yesterday. And what did they do? They took down growth estimates for the U.S. pretty substantially. They had been projecting back in January 2.3%. Now they're down at 1.4%. It is more than worth noting that 1.4% is exactly half of the 2.8% that we achieved in the last year of the Biden administration. So the president, who promised to, quote, revitalize the American economy, is actually looking at a growth rate of half of what it was last year. And then the other noteworthy point is we may well be shooting ourselves in the foot, because the World Bank only took down its estimates for Europe's growth rate, which is slower than ours, but they took it down by a much smaller share, and they didn't change China's growth rate at all. So they feel that China is going to work its way through these tariffs a lot better than we are.
Labor market slowing down.
Yeah, so we had an unemployment report last Friday, and the good news is the economy added a lot of jobs. The bad news is that the growth rate in jobs have been decelerating. Now, some of this was inevitable. This is out as we were coming out of COVID. This is a very, very high number of jobs that we were adding. And so it's natural that it would have come down. But now for the last several months, the number of jobs we're adding is actually below. This is the pre-pandemic average. So this is a kind of normal, stable economy, what we were adding. And this is what we've been adding over the last 12 months. There's one other interesting point about this, which is not on here, which is that 600,000 people dropped out of the labor force last month. That is a very big number. We don't know who they are. I don't know who they are, but it's not out of the question. This may have something to do with Trump's immigration policies. But consumers also have noticed the fact that the job market is weakening. If you look at the percentage who think jobs are plentiful, it's dropped to 32%. It was up here close to 60% as we came out of COVID. That's also obviously unnaturally high. But if you look even before COVID, the number of people who thought they were plentiful was about 45%. The people who think not so plentiful, obviously rising. And the people who say hard to get, 19%, also well above pre-COVID levels.
Economic uncertainty that just seems so pervasive is your third chart. Home buyers simply aren't biting.
Yeah, I think when you talk about those poll numbers you were showing earlier, things like the situation with jobs and then with houses play a factor in all this. So what's happened? It's really interesting because the number, again, coming out of COVID, ignore all these wild fluctuations, but coming out of COVID, the number of buyers, the number of sellers was kind of in balance. Now look what's happened. The number number of sellers has shot up to almost 2 million. The number of buyers has dropped to 1.5 million. And so you've got almost 500,000 houses sitting on the market waiting for buyers. Now, why has that happened? Some of it is clearly economic uncertainty. Again, you go back to the Trump economic policies, up, down, backwards, sideways. People do not want to make major purchases when they really have no idea where the country is going. So that's a factor. But the other factor is that what we call affordability, what an average consumer has to pay to afford his house, has been rising for a good while since we started raising interest rates coming out of COVID. So back here in 21, it was $1,000. Today, it's about $2,000. And so that is a significant impact on consumers. But Trump, who again came to office promising he was going to solve all these kinds of problems, what's happened? Since Election Day, it's gone from $2,100 up to almost $2,200. And on Liberation Day, it actually took a particularly large jump because the 30-year Treasury took a particularly large jump because of the tariffs. So we're going in the wrong direction on housing affordability at the moment, as well as consumers' willingness to make major purchases as we live in this world of economic uncertainty.
Yeah, lots of warning signs there. So as mentioned, the Wall Street Journal editorial board argues that Trump has no China trade strategy. Its new piece reads in part this way. President Trump on Wednesday hailed the result of the latest trade talks with China as a great victory. But the best we can say is that it's a truce that tilts in China's direction. His latest walkback shows he can't bully China as he tried to do in his first term. China has leverage of its own. Mr. Trump has used tariffs as an economic scattergun against friends as well as foes. This increases China's leverage, and like this week's trade truce, that's nothing to cheer about.
So what is clear here? First of all, the country with the upper hand here is China, and it's clear. The World Bank has decided, have pointed out after doing their research, that this tariff war will have little impact on China, as they've shown in the charts that you've seen there, but has a material effect on our output. Actually, our GDP has dropped or will drop by half. From 2.8% to 1.4% because of Donald Trump's tariffs. But it gets worse than that. If you take a look at the employment picture, you see that we, as mentioned by Rattner, 600,000 jobs that are no longer, people that are no longer showing up in the charts for those jobs. Why? It is likely having to do with people scared to go to work because of having to deal with ICE and many other immigration issues. Then we take a look at the prices of homes. People can no longer afford the homes, not only because of the price of lumber caused by the tariff between Donald Trump and Canada and other places, but because, again, his policies are so lousy that the people who control interest rates are pretty much saying, you know what, we can't lower these interest rates because Donald Trump is destroying the economy with these tariffs, and we have no clue as to what it's going to be. And as such, mortgages are higher, and many other financial instruments that we depend on will cost us more. So in effect, from employment to migration to the price of products, Donald Trump is really playing a number on the economy. And while all of it hasn't come to fruition yet, just wait. It is coming because math is absolute.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.